Good morning and welcome to Morning Movie News, where the first story of the day is actually from late last week, but I missed it. What finally brought it to my attention? Well, actually, one of you! Yes, late yesterday, one of you tweeted me this story and said, I bet Grace is really excited about this new Hollywood role for Iko Uwais, the guy from the Raid movies. And sure enough, I am incredibly excited about it. So thank you again for calling it to my attention. And of course, I have to share it with the rest of you because I know many of you are Raid fans as well. I'm also going to give you a little update on Gareth Evans, the director of the Raid movies as well, who discovered Iko Uwais, and then both of their careers went nowhere. But anyway, let's go back a little bit, and I want you to recall that in my very last Deadpool 2 trailer breakdown, I mentioned that Fox, same studio, is basically making a full Deadpool and Dopinder movie, or basically, as many of you pointed out, another Taxi, and that, of course, is the very successful French film that was eventually remade here in the United States as a very unsuccessful film starring Queen Latifah and Jimmy Fallon when he thought he might be able to have a movie career, and then got a resounding no as the answer, although he rebounded beautifully because, you know, Lorne Michaels, interestingly, on a side note, just really likes Jimmy Fallon and has given him more chances than I think Jimmy Fallon normally would have gotten. Although for a while there it paid off and Fallon was the king of late night, but he stumbled so spectacularly with the political stuff that I don't know if he'll ever be able to recover. But anyway, this new movie is called Stuber, and it's about an Uber driver instead of a taxi driver. And you know, you would think that Hollywood would be doing more with Uber drivers, considering not only how long they've been around at this point, but how much they're a part of everybody's lives, right? Across the country. It's not just something so much reserved for cities either. And also, unfortunately, there have been some very dramatic stories that have come out of Uber situations. But it only seems to be getting to the silver screen now in such a overt way. I mean, Kumail Nanjiani is going to star, and he played an Uber driver in his breakout film, The Big Sick. And then also Roseanne, the sitcom that's just come back, she plays an Uber driver, although they haven't really done anything with it just yet. They can do cars on sitcoms, so I wonder if we'll ever see her on the job. I think that to get them out of the house would, I think, be a welcome and interesting change. But, you know, I don't know if they want to mess with the formula, considering it's going so well. So this movie, Stuber, with Kumail Nanjiani as an Uber driver. Don't worry, I'm getting to Iko Uwais. You might be like, this is an Iko Uwais story, and yet we're not talking about him. I'm setting the stage. So Dave Bautista will play a detective, you know, Drax from the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, who's won me over. I know many of you liked him right out of the gate, but I'm like, you can't act. I accept it. I like that. He's no John Cena. I think it goes The Rock in terms of quality, then John Cena, and then Dave Bautista bringing up the rear. But he's no Ronda Rousey, luckily, so, you know, good for him. He's not dead last, although she seems to be staging a comeback, too. You're never out in Hollywood. You can always come back. I saw her trending last night for WrestleMania. You know what never trended? The Solo trailer. It's so sad. All right, so back to Stuber. So to make this all the more of an enticing package, you not only have Kumail Nanjiani and Dave Bautista, but you now have Iko Uwais in an unspecified role. But hopefully it's a big one. Not like The Force Awakens, which just had him show up with like Miley Cyrus pigtails for like a hot second, and then he left. And that was kind of like, J.J. Abrams, I don't think you should have even bothered, right? It was very frustrating. He's an Indonesian actor and very gifted fighter, so you think Hollywood would be all over this. You know, the first Raid came out in 2011, and then the sequel in 2014, but of course Hollywood's big idea was to remake the Raid with a Hollywood cast and director. I think it was the director of like The Expendables 3 or something, but this thing has just never moved forward. And Gareth Evans, by the way, the director, he hasn't been able to get anywhere either. He finally has an English language movie coming up called Apostle with Dan Stevens from Legion and Beauty and the Beast, but that's going to debut on Netflix later this year in September. And I think we're all a little bit nervous now when it comes to Netflix movies, considering their track record. Like, Mute was so bad, I don't know if I'll ever get over it. Oh, it's so scary. I mean, I'll watch it because it's my job, and I love Gareth Evans, and I love Dan Stevens, but I'm scared for both of them. But you can see how long it can take, even with a film as amazing as The Raid 2, to get into Hollywood. The Raid 2, if you haven't seen this film, it's like Christopher Nolan level quality directing for like a genre actioner. It's just so well done. You know, it's really a piece of art, and I think it's very commercial as well. And it's just a shame that these two individuals have just had, luckily they just didn't give up. So that's great. But it's hard. It's hard to maintain and also to keep, not only to keep doing it financially, but I think emotionally as well. On a side note, Eugenio Derbez, of course, comes from Mexico. And he, interestingly, told a story, I believe on the Today Show, about how he really tried to break into the U.S. market since like 2006 or like early 2000s, and it just wasn't working out. So he went back to Mexico and he made Instructions Not Included, which came out, I believe, in 2011, and that was the biggest Spanish language movie ever in the United States, box office wise. So finally he starts to get work. He had How to Be a Latin Lover. He has Overboard, the remake, coming up May 4th. It took the old Avengers date. And he's still struggling, but at least he's getting more work. But you can just see how long it's taken. And even though he's such a huge star in Mexico, their biggest comedian, he just is really having a hard time of anyone in Hollywood taking a flyer on him. But great for Iko Uwais. I'm so happy. And I'm curious, how do you feel about Stuber? I'm definitely watching it. It's a great cast. All right, so that's the first story of the day. Now, the second story, interestingly, talking about new talent, new generations, new opportunities. Well, the same can be applied to meet and greets at Disneyland. How do you like that transition? All right, so for quite some time now, resort guests have been able to meet Captain America, Thor, and Spider-Man at Disneyland. They occasionally have them at Disney World as well, but it's really tricky with the whole Universal Studios Islands of Adventure situation because of their Marvel contract. But at Disneyland, they're very aggressively moving into the Marvel space right now. They have the whole land they're building, but it takes time to build a land, especially when Disney has quite the to-do list when it comes to lands to build. They're building a bunch of Frozen lands. They're building, of course, those Star Wars lands, and now Marvel's on the to-do list as well. But you know what you can do immediately, pretty much? Meet and greets, character meet and greets. And of course, as Black Panther has become such a sensation, they've introduced not only a T'Challa meet and greet, but complete with the Dora Milaje as well at Disneyland. And not only do you get to meet the characters, but they have a whole little routine they do beforehand. There's like a little mini parade, and it's gotten a lot of attention. And Disney, of course, Disney pays attention to everything that happens in their empire. For instance, those magic bands that you wear in Disney World, they're not just so you can have a more convenient time, but they track your every movement and your purchase, so they know what your spending habits are. That's the trade-off. It's brilliant. I don't mind the trade-off. I think it's really smart. And so obviously, I believe I've heard that there's been like an hour plus line to meet Black Panther. So Disney goes, who else can we bring to the theme parks? Well, they announced late last week that they're bringing Doctor Strange to Disneyland. I think that's very exciting. No exact date for when he'll begin appearing has been given, but it's coming up. So keep an eye on that, particularly if you're in the California area. You can just hop down there or dimension hop when he starts showing up. And speaking of dimension hopping, they said in the announcement that because of that ability that Doctor Strange has, who knows where he'll show up? So it might be in different parts of the park, and I wonder what the showmanship will be of this experience as well. That could be really cool. I mean, the Dora Milaje and Black Panther impressions that I've seen online. I haven't been there since they started it in Disneyland to see it myself, but I've watched some YouTube videos that I've actually shared on my Twitter account because I thought they were so good. And the actors they've hired are impressive. So let's see if anyone can do a good Benny C. As I've said before, they do a great Jack Sparrow. They hire talent that can really do Johnny Depp impressions. So I'm curious to see I guess I have faith they're going to do a good job, but I wonder how they'll interpret what Benedict Cumberbatch brings to the role. It's going to be fun. I would like there to be more female superhero meet and greets, though. I think that's important to acknowledge that this isn't like just for guys. I mean, of course, women want to meet these male characters, and I'm sure that male fans would like to meet these female characters. Black Widow, there was like a Black Widow experience, I think like maybe 2 summers ago at Disneyland, or maybe, I think it was actually last summer. So that was great, but it didn't stick around, so maybe it wasn't that popular because Disney wouldn't get rid of something that was popular. But hopefully with the Captain Marvel movie coming up, we'll have a meet and greet for her. And as Disney ramps up Marvel experiences and Star Wars experiences across the globe, does it increase your interest in visiting the parks if you haven't been doing so beforehand? All right, so that's the second story of the day. Now, the third story of the day, this is a very interesting one. Now, when it comes to prestige projects, a really big brand within Hollywood has been the Blacklist, and that is a list of the best unproduced screenplays in Tinseltown. But sometimes the scripts can stay on that list for years, remaining unproduced, and sometimes forever. They still never get made. Often the reason a script isn't produced is valid. That's, so that's a little bit of a stumbling block for those movies getting produced, even once they get on the list. But there has been a new development. The Blacklist, the organization that makes it, has just secured funding so that they can independently produce movies themselves or co-produce with another distributor or investor to make 3 to 5 English language films a year at $15 million and under for the budget. That 15, if they were just doing them all at 5, that would be amazing. But they have some that can go up to 15. I mean, remember, A Quiet Place was made for 17. So that's very exciting news, not just for screenwriters and filmmakers, but also for the emergence of a possible new brand for the general public, the Blacklist. I think this is very, very, very cool. And its identity would be to push the edge of the envelope, right? It's interesting to me because this is like DC's former Vertigo imprint, which was discontinued because the suits at Warner Brothers didn't like having the creators of those comics have ownership in their work. They're like, why would we do that? And you're like, oh, it's working out okay for Image. But anyway, DC recently announced that they're going to try and launch a new type of Vertigo imprint, and they're calling it Black Label. So who will become the premier Black Label in the entertainment space? Will it be DC's or will it be the Blacklist? I don't think they can both kind of be there. I would tip my hat to the Blacklist. I think this is a very exciting development. And I hope all their films don't end up on Netflix because they're not good. That'd be so bad. All right, so I'm curious, what do you think of this? And also, you can submit to the Blacklist. Anyone can submit to the Blacklist, and now there's even more incentive to do so. All right, so those are the 3 stories of the day. Now, the viewer question comes from the Random Horse 66. That's a great username. So the Random Horse 66 says, viewer question, Grace. You say an actor is not suitable for a role because of how they are, quote unquote, but surely they can become surely they can because they are actors, and just because they haven't done it before doesn't mean they can't. Maybe that's why Kristen Wiig was cast as Cheetah. I think this is also stemming out of my comments on Friday that John Krasinski is just not a good fit with the Reed Richards persona. I just don't see him being able to play that role. So the Random Horse 66 says, can you explain? Much love from the UK. Great question, because we do talk about this all the time, so I welcome the chance to further explain my position. So I'm basing this on the fact that there are really just 2 types of actors in Hollywood. And this is the rule in Hollywood. It's been that way for decades. And so let me explain it to you. So there's character, and if you want to be an actor, you have to think about this for where you would fit in. So it's important to understand this from a number of different perspectives. So they're character actors, and these are actors who have the ability to transform themselves, and they're usually supporting. But occasionally you have actors like Dustin Hoffman, Heath Ledger, and Daniel Day-Lewis who can become lead actors. They're so good at what they do, and they have kind of like the charisma of a leading actor that, they can still be a box office draw and sell tickets, right? Because the name of the game for the lead is to sell tickets, to put butts in the seats, right? And then there are, on that note, leading actors. Now, Paul Newman had a famous quote about this. Paul Newman said, in the wrong role, I'm worth nothing. But in the right role, when I'm cast correctly, I'm priceless. And that's what a leading actor is. These actors can really only do one thing, but they do it, not only do they do it incredibly well, but the audience enjoys it. I'm talking Harrison Ford, Robert Downey Jr., Chris Pratt. These actors become brands. Audiences have Dwayne Johnson is a perfect example of that. The audience has an expectation of what this actor is going to deliver, and that's what that actor does. Now, occasionally, you do get someone who's kind of in between. Tom Hanks is a good example of this, Denzel Washington, and also Leonardo DiCaprio. But for the most part, they divide into those 2 categories. Now, most of you are assuming in the discussions that we have that everyone is a character actor. I think you're going by the traditional definition of an actor, but that's not true. You don't have to be an amazing, transformative actor to make it in Hollywood. In fact, the actors who have no range get the biggest paychecks. It's a very interesting situation. It's not like the theater, but even the theater, though, it's kind of becoming the same situation, especially as the theater becomes more commercial. Now, if an actor can transform, they're not hiding this quality from you. Trust me, this is a selling point, especially because an actor struggles so early on, they want to go and show off what they can do. A good example of this is Jake Gyllenhaal, and he really can't land anywhere because he's not a leading actor. He's not really a successful character actor. He's just kind of out there, impressing some of us, but not most people. And as for John Krasinski, well, he has never challenged himself. He knows what he can deliver as an actor. He is a brand. He is nice guy Jim, you know. He was perfectly cast on The Office, and ever since he's done the exact same thing. Even in a movie like A Quiet Place, which he co-wrote and directed, he could have done anything. He could have been like, this is my chance to prove what I can do because nobody else will let me. And he was like, nope, I know what I do. I'm a brand. I'm Jim. And, you know, he's found tremendous success doing that. Also, Ryan Reynolds is another good example of a brand. He's not going to, Ryan Reynolds can't transform himself. He has a very specific thing to do that audiences like, or at least when he's Deadpool, they like it. And that's what he does. So the Random Horse 66, that's my answer to your question. I hope it sheds some light on the situation. Kristen Wiig, as for your thing there, I think that Kristen Wiig does have some range. She has tried to do some dramatic roles, but I think there's always a comedic element to her. And I just don't think, especially in a role where she turns into a giant cat, that she's going to be able to keep audiences from not constantly expecting her to go for the joke. I think that's the problem there. I think it's not only the type of actress that she is and the reputation that she has, but the role that she has been cast in. All right, so that's today's morning movie news. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please write down below, I think, today's top 3 stories, the Random Horse 66 viewer question, anything you'd like to see covered tomorrow, and of course, any questions that you might have. Thanks for watching. Bye.